My wife texted divorce papers while I was leading a cybersecurity training for wounded veterans, and within 48 hours I would be homeless, stripped of everything I'd built in the last 15 years. My name is Jack Harrison, a 47-year-old cybersecurity consultant and retired Marine Corps major who spent 2 decades protecting national infrastructure, only to find myself unraveled by the very systems I'd dedicated my life to understanding. The conference room at the Veterans Rehabilitation Center in Colorado Springs hummed with the quiet intensity of warriors learning to fight a different kind of battle. 12 veterans, each bearing visible and invisible scars, sat around me, their eyes fixed on the complex network diagrams projected on the wall. I'd been running these workshops for 3 years, helping fellow veterans translate military precision into civilian cybersecurity skills. For many, it was more than a job retraining. It was a lifeline, a way to rebuild purpose after service. My phone vibrated. Normally, I'd ignore it during training, but something about the rhythm of the buzz felt different. A quick glance revealed a message from Karen, my wife of 17 years. Attachment, divorce petition, prenuptial agreement activated. I'd helped draft that prenup 15 years ago, back when we were young and idealistic, never imagining it would become a weapon against me. The world around me continued. A veteran named Rodriguez was asking about firewall configurations, his prosthetic hand gesturing smoothly as he spoke. Another, Thompson, watched intently, his hearing aid catching every technical nuance. They saw me as a beacon of stability, a Marine who'd transitioned seamlessly from military intelligence to private sector cybersecurity. Little did they know that my own infrastructure was about to be compromised. I managed to finish the training, my muscle memory of military composure, working overtime. Each veteran left with a certificate, a potential job recommendation, a slice of hope. Only when the last person walked out did I allow myself to truly look at the divorce papers. The prenup was brutally precise. Karen, who worked as a senior executive at a Silicon Valley tech firm, had been planning this for months. Every clause was a calculated strike. Our house in the foothills of the Rockies, gone. Retirement accounts, frozen. Joint investments, liquidated. The document revealed a surgical approach to separation that would make any military strategist appreciate its ruthless efficiency. What Karen didn't know was that I'd spent my entire career building defensive systems. Not just in cybersecurity, but in life. I'd survived 2 combat tours in Afghanistan, navigated complex international security networks, and rebuilt entire communication infrastructures for military bases. A divorce was just another system to analyze, another problem to solve. The text from Karen came through moments later. Jack, I'm leaving. Marcus and I are getting married. The prenup ensures a clean break. Marcus, her 32-year-old intern who'd been working closely with her team for the past 18 months. The pieces started clicking into place. Late night, strategy sessions, weekend work retreats, the gradual emotional distance that had crept into our marriage. My military training had always been about threat assessment. Identify the problem, analyze the resources, develop a strategic response. But this was personal. This was my life being dismantled with the same clinical precision I'd used to deconstruct terrorist communication networks. The details emerged quickly. Marcus wasn't just an intern. He was being groomed for a leadership position, and Karen had been engineering his rapid ascent. Their relationship wasn't a sudden spark, but a carefully orchestrated transition. The prenup, which I'd helped draft, with such confidence years ago, now felt like a self-inflicted wound. By 6 p.m., I'd been served official eviction papers. The house I'd bought after returning from my last deployment, the sanctuary I'd built for myself and Karen, would be on the market within weeks. My military pension and cybersecurity consulting income were structured in a way that made them vulnerable to the prenup's provisions. 48 hours. That's how long I had to completely dismantle my current life. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent years teaching veterans how to rebuild after losing everything, and now I was about to become my own case study. My phone continued to buzz. Emails from our joint financial advisor, notifications from our shared investment platforms. Each ping was another layer of my life being systematically dismantled. But beneath the shock, something else was emerging. Not anger, not despair, but the same cold, analytical processing I'd used in military intelligence. This wasn't just a personal betrayal. This was a system to be understood, analyzed, and ultimately navigated. I opened my laptop and began to compile data. Every email, every financial record, every communication with Karen over the past 2 years. If she thought she could use systematic approaches to deconstruct our life, she was about to learn that I'd written the playbook on strategic defense. The veterans I'd trained today believed I was their mentor, their guide to a new professional life. They had no idea that at that moment I was about to apply every lesson of resilience, every tactical skill I'd learned in the most challenging environments to my own personal battlefield. 48 hours. The countdown had begun. The Marine Corps taught me that true strategy begins with comprehensive intelligence gathering. By sunrise, my home office transformed into a war room of documentation. Bank statements, email archives, meeting schedules. Each document became a piece of tactical evidence. Karen thought she'd planned the perfect extraction, but she'd forgotten one critical detail. I was trained to analyze complex systems long before I entered cybersecurity. My first call was to Michael Reyes, a veteran attorney I'd met through my rehabilitation training programs. We'd bonded over shared experiences of rebuilding after military service. His law firm specialized in complex divorce cases involving high-net-worth individuals and military personnel. "Tell me everything," Michael said, his voice calm and professional. I began systematically breaking down the timeline. Karen's relationship with Marcus hadn't been a sudden affair, but a calculated career and personal merger. She'd been positioning him strategically within her tech company, Quantum Innovations, for months. Promotions, special project assignments, international conference invitations. Each move was a chess piece carefully placed. The prenup I'd helped draft years ago now felt like a self-inflicted wound. We'd created it with such optimism, believing in transparency and mutual protection. Now it was a precision instrument of financial destruction. Karen had exploited every clause, every carefully worded section I'd once thought was fair and reasonable. Michael listened carefully, occasionally typing notes. "The prenup is airtight in most areas, but there are always vulnerabilities," he muttered. "Tell me more about her professional conduct. Any irregularities at work?" My cybersecurity background wasn't just a profession, it was a methodology of thinking. I began pulling corporate communication records, expense reports, travel logs. Something felt off about how smoothly Marcus had risen through Quantum Innovations' ranks. By midday, I'd compiled a comprehensive dossier. Marcus had joined the company 3 years ago as a junior marketing coordinator. Within 18 months, he'd been promoted to a senior strategic position, directly under Karen's supervision. Their travel records showed multiple international conferences, joint project meetings, periods of extended collaboration that now looked suspiciously like something more than professional courtesy. "I want a full forensic audit," I told Michael, "not just of our personal finances, but of her professional interactions." The veteran community became my unexpected support network. Rodriguez, the veteran from my cybersecurity training, worked in corporate forensic accounting. Thompson had connections in tech industry compliance. Within hours, they were providing additional perspectives, helping me map out the complex landscape of Karen's professional maneuvers. My military pension and consulting income complicated. The prenup's execution. Each dollar was strategically structured. some protected, some vulnerable. I'd always believed in diversification, a lesson learned from years of military financial planning. Now that approach would become my defensive strategy. By evening, a clearer picture emerged. Karen and Marcus weren't just romantically involved. They were planning a complete professional and personal takeover. The prenup was merely the first phase of a more elaborate strategy. Quantum Innovations was expanding into government cybersecurity contracts, and Marcus's rapid promotion coincided with several major bid preparations. My phone rang. An unknown number. Mr. Harrison, a female voice, professional and measured. This is Elena Rodriguez from Corporate Compliance at Quantum Innovations. The conversation was brief but revealing. Corporate Compliance had initiated a preliminary investigation into some irregular project funding allocations. My detailed documentation became unexpectedly valuable. The very skills that had made me successful in military intelligence and cybersecurity were now my primary defense mechanism. Sleep came in short, strategic intervals. Military training had long ago taught me to rest efficiently, to remain alert and functional with minimal downtime. Each hour was an opportunity to analyze, to prepare, to build a counter-strategy. By midnight, I had a war room of digital and physical evidence, expense reports showing questionable travel allocations, communication records revealing a pattern of professional misconduct, financial transfers that seemed innocuous individually, but formed a suspicious pattern when viewed comprehensively. Michael called with an initial assessment. There are definitely irregularities in Marcus's promotions. His performance metrics don't align with his rapid advancement, and Karen's involvement raises significant ethical questions. The prenup had been designed to be a clean, surgical separation, but like any complex system, it had vulnerabilities. My job was to find and exploit those weaknesses, not out of revenge, but out of a fundamental commitment to truth and systemic integrity. I thought about the veterans I trained, each of them rebuilding their lives after significant personal and professional challenges. They looked to me as a model of resilience, of strategic thinking. Now, I would become my own most important case study. The next 48 hours would determine everything: my home, my financial stability, my professional reputation, all hung in a delicate balance. But I'd navigated far more complex terrains, under far more dangerous circumstances. This was just another mission, and I was prepared to see it through. The first layer of revelation came through an unexpected channel. Elena Rodriguez from Quantum Innovations' corporate compliance team called early Wednesday morning, her voice tight with professional concern. Mr. Harrison, we've identified some irregularities in project funding that require further investigation. I'd learned long ago in military intelligence that information rarely arrives in neat packages. Each piece of data was a fragment, waiting to be assembled into a comprehensive picture. Elena's call was more than a courtesy. It was a strategic disclosure. Quantum Innovations had been pursuing a critical government cybersecurity contract. The project, valued at $47 million, would revolutionize secure communication protocols for federal agencies. Marcus had been the lead strategist, with Karen directly overseeing the proposal, but something didn't add up in the financial projections. My military training kicked in. I began cross-referencing every document, every communication, every financial record. The company's internal communications revealed a carefully constructed narrative that was slowly unraveling. Project budgets showed phantom expenses, consultant fees for non-existent contractors, travel allocations that seemed designed to obscure financial trails. Michael Reyes arrived at my temporary housing, a small furnished apartment I'd secured, after the eviction, with additional documentation. "Look at this," he said, spreading out a series of financial reports. "The project budgets for the government contract have multiple red flags: inflated consultant fees, duplicate expense claims, routing of funds through shell companies. Rodriguez from my veteran training program had been working his forensic accounting magic. He'd traced a series of financial transfers that painted a disturbing picture. Marcus wasn't just Karen's romantic partner, he was a key player in what appeared to be a sophisticated financial manipulation scheme. The more we dug, the more complex the web became. Karen had positioned herself perfectly. As the Senior Vice President of Strategic Operations at Quantum Innovations, she had access to multiple financial systems. Marcus, supposedly a rising star in marketing strategy, had been systematically inserting himself into critical project teams. Their relationship wasn't just a personal betrayal. It was a calculated professional merger designed to exploit corporate systems. I spent hours reconstructing their professional timeline. Marcus's rise was too perfect, too strategic. Promotions that seemed impossible became explicable when viewed through the lens of their personal relationship. Each career move, each project assignment was a carefully placed chess piece. By Thursday afternoon, we had a comprehensive timeline. Marcus had joined Quantum Innovations 3 years ago, quickly becoming Karen's protégé. Within 18 months, he'd been promoted multiple times, always landing in positions that gave him access to critical financial and strategic information. The government cybersecurity contract was their ultimate goal, a $47 million project that would position Quantum Innovations as a leader in federal communications security. But the proposal contained inconsistencies that my trained eye quickly identified. Elena from corporate compliance became an unexpected ally. "We've been investigating internal discrepancies," she explained during our third phone call. "Your documentation has been invaluable." The corporate investigation was expanding, and Karen and Marcus were at the center. My veterans network proved to be an incredible resource. Thompson, who worked in tech compliance, provided insights into corporate communication protocols. Rodriguez continued to pull financial records, tracing the intricate financial maneuvers. The prenup, which had initially seemed like a total financial defeat, now became a secondary concern. Something much larger was unfolding. This wasn't just about a personal betrayal. It was about a systematic attempt to manipulate corporate and government systems. Each piece of evidence was carefully documented. Military discipline meant nothing was left to chance. Digital copies, physical records, time-stamped communications. A comprehensive dossier was taking shape. Michael's legal expertise became crucial. "We're looking at potential corporate fraud," he explained. "The government contract investigation could be much bigger than your divorce." The irony wasn't lost on me. What began as a personal betrayal was becoming a complex corporate investigation. Karen and Marcus had built their strategy on a fundamental miscalculation. They believed their personal and professional manipulation would go undetected. They didn't. Understand that I'd spent decades identifying and neutralizing complex systemic threats. My cybersecurity training had taught me that every system has vulnerabilities. Every network has potential points of breach. What they saw as a perfect plan, I saw as a series of interconnected weaknesses waiting to be exposed. By Friday morning, the investigation had taken on a life of its own. Corporate compliance, legal. Teams and potentially federal investigators were now circling Quantum Innovations. The government cybersecurity contract, their ultimate prize, was now under intense scrutiny. I thought about the veterans I'd trained, each of them fighting their own battles of reconstruction and resilience. This was my battle now, not just for personal vindication, but for the fundamental integrity of professional systems. The first layer of revelation had been pulled back, and beneath it lay a complexity that neither Karen nor Marcus could have anticipated. Strategic counteraction began with a meticulously constructed response. The veterans I'd trained would understand this approach. No emotional outburst, just precise, calculated movement. Each action would be a carefully planned tactical maneuver designed to expose the full extent of Karen and Marcus's corporate manipulation. My first move involved Michael Reyes and the legal documentation we'd assembled. We filed a comprehensive motion that went far beyond a simple divorce proceeding. The documentation revealed a complex pattern of potential corporate fraud, professional misconduct, and systemic manipulation within Quantum Innovations. Rodriguez's forensic accounting skills proved invaluable. He'd uncovered a series of financial transfers that defied standard corporate accounting practices. Consultant fees paid to non-existent entities, travel expenses routed through shell companies, project budgets inflated with phantom expenses. Each line item was a breadcrumb leading to a larger investigation. The corporate compliance team at Quantum Innovations became our unexpected allies. Elena Rodriguez, no relation to my veteran forensic accountant, confirmed that our independent investigation aligned with their internal concerns. "We've been tracking irregularities for months," she revealed during a secure video conference. "But we needed concrete evidence. I leveraged every connection from my military and cybersecurity networks. Thompson, another veteran from my training program, had contacts in tech industry compliance. His insights helped us map the potential scope of the corporate misconduct. Marcus's rapid rise through the company wasn't just about personal advancement. It was a calculated infiltration of corporate systems. Legal strategy became our primary weapon. Michael prepared a multi-pronged approach. A divorce filing that challenged the prenup's validity, a separate corporate misconduct complaint that would trigger federal investigations. Each document was a precision instrument designed to expose the systemic vulnerabilities Karen and Marcus had exploited. The government cybersecurity contract, the crown jewel of their manipulation, became the focal point of our investigation. The $47 million project proposal contained inconsistencies that my trained eye quickly identified. Inflated consultant fees, phantom subcontractor agreements, communication protocols that suggested deliberate obfuscation. My military intelligence background provided a unique perspective. I'd spent years identifying complex communication networks, understanding how information flows and how systems can be manipulated. Karen and Marcus had built what they believed was an impenetrable strategy. They were wrong. By the end of the first week, multiple investigations were converging. Corporate compliance at Quantum Innovations, federal contract review boards, our independent legal team. Each entity was pulling at different threads of the same complex tapestry of deceit. The prenup, which had initially seemed like a total financial defeat, now became a secondary concern. Marcus and Karen had overreached. Their attempt to manipulate personal and professional systems had created multiple points of vulnerability. I received a call from a federal contract investigator. "Mr. Harrison, your documentation has been extremely helpful," the investigator explained. "We're looking at potential violations of federal procurement regulations." The investigation was expanding beyond my personal circumstances, revealing a much larger systemic issue. Our veteran network became an unexpected support system. Each connection provided a piece of the puzzle. Rodriguez's forensic accounting, Thompson's compliance insights. Other veterans who understood the importance of systematic approach and meticulous documentation. Karen attempted to counter our moves. Her legal team filed motions challenging our documentation, but each motion only exposed more inconsistencies. The very system she thought would protect her were now turning against her. The government cybersecurity contract became the linchpin of our strategy. If we could demonstrate systematic manipulation in the contract proposal, it would trigger a comprehensive federal investigation. Marcus and Karen had built their entire strategy on the assumption that their manipulation would go undetected. Temporary housing became a war room. Walls covered with timelines, financial records, communication logs. Each document carefully organized, cross-referenced, analyzed. The same discipline I'd applied to military intelligence now served a personal and professional mission. Michael Reyes kept me updated on the legal developments. "The prenup is looking increasingly vulnerable," he explained during one strategy session. "Their attempt to create a perfect extraction strategy has created multiple legal vulnerabilities." Karen and Marcus had been so focused on their personal and professional merger that they'd overlooked critical legal details. By the end of the second week, the landscape had dramatically transformed. What began as a personal betrayal had become a complex investigation involving corporate compliance, federal contract review, and potential criminal investigation. I thought about the veterans I'd trained, each of them understanding the importance of resilience, of systematic approach, of turning challenges into opportunities for growth. This was my battlefield now. Not with weapons, but with documentation, with strategic thinking, with an unwavering commitment to systemic integrity. The strategic counteraction was more than a personal response. It was a systematic exposure of a complex manipulation strategy. Karen and Marcus had believed they could exploit corporate and personal systems with impunity. They were about to learn a critical lesson about the consequences of such assumptions. Every military operation requires patience, precision, and an understanding of complex systems. This was no different. And I was just getting started. The deeper unraveling began with a single encrypted email recovered from a backup server. Digital forensics was a language I'd become fluent in, both through military training and years of cybersecurity consulting. What initially appeared to be a personal betrayal was morphing into a complex web of corporate manipulation that stretched far beyond my initial understanding. Elena Rodriguez from Quantum Innovations' compliance team called early one morning, her voice carrying a mixture of professional concern and barely contained excitement. "We've found something significant," she said. The encrypted email, once decrypted, revealed a systematic plan of corporate espionage that implicated not just Karen and Marcus, but several key executives within the technology sector. Rodriguez, my forensic accounting veteran, had been working. Over time, his military-trained attention to detail uncovered a series of financial transactions that painted a disturbing picture. The government cybersecurity contract wasn't just a prize. It was the culmination of a carefully orchestrated, long-term strategy of corporate infiltration and information manipulation. Marcus wasn't simply Karen's romantic partner. He was a calculated plant within Quantum Innovations, positioned strategically to exploit corporate systems. His rapid rise through the company's ranks now made perfect sense. Each promotion, each strategic assignment had been part of a meticulously planned infiltration. The encrypted email revealed communications with external parties, competitors, potential buyers, even international technology firms. They had been systematically gathering intelligence, manipulating project bids, creating phantom consulting agreements that would funnel millions into untraceable accounts. My military intelligence background provided a unique lens. I'd spent years identifying complex communication networks, understanding how information flows and how systems can be compromised. What Karen and Marcus saw as a perfect extraction strategy was actually a house of cards waiting to collapse. Michael Reyes arrived at my temporary apartment, spreading out a series of forensic reports. "This goes deeper than corporate misconduct," he said, his voice grave. "We're looking at potential federal charges of corporate espionage, fraud, and systematic manipulation of government contract processes." The government cybersecurity contract became the focal point of our investigation. The $47 million project was more than a business opportunity. It was the centerpiece of a complex scheme designed to exploit federal procurement systems, phantom subcontractors, inflated consultant fees, deliberately obscured communication protocols. Each element was a carefully placed piece of a larger puzzle. Thompson, another veteran from my training program with connections in tech compliance, provided crucial insights. "They've been building this network for years," he explained during a secure video call. "Marcus wasn't just an intern or a rising executive. He was a strategic asset planted to exploit corporate vulnerabilities." Federal investigators began to take serious interest. The initial divorce proceedings had become a secondary concern to the larger investigation unfolding. Karen and Marcus had believed they could manipulate complex systems with impunity. They were about to learn the fundamental lesson of systemic vulnerability. Digital forensics revealed a stunning breadth of manipulation. Fake consulting agreements, phantom technology development contracts, a network of shell companies designed to obscure financial transfers. Each layer we peeled back revealed more complexity, more deliberate manipulation. The veteran community became an unexpected source of support and expertise. Rodriguez continued his forensic accounting. Thompson provided compliance insights. Others in my network shared specialized knowledge about corporate communication systems, digital forensics, legal strategies. Karen attempted to counter the mounting evidence. Her legal team filed multiple motions, challenged our documentation, tried to create confusion. But each motion only exposed more inconsistencies. The very systems she thought would protect her were now turning against her. The timeline of their manipulation became clear. Marcus had been strategically positioned within Quantum Innovations 3 years ago. Each promotion, each strategic project assignment was part of a carefully constructed plan to exploit corporate systems and secure the government cybersecurity contract. Our investigation began to attract broader attention. Technology industry publications started asking questions. Federal contract review boards initiated comprehensive audits. The seemingly perfect extraction strategy was unraveling at multiple levels. I thought about the veterans I'd trained, each understanding the importance of resilience, of systematic approach, of turning challenges into opportunities for growth. This was my battlefield now. Not with traditional weapons, but with documentation, with strategic thinking, with an unwavering commitment to systemic integrity. The federal investigation expanded rapidly. What began as a personal betrayal had transformed into a comprehensive examination of corporate manipulation strategies. Karen and Marcus had believed they could exploit corporate and personal systems with impunity. They were about to face the comprehensive consequences of their actions. Digital forensics became our primary weapon. Every email, every financial transfer, every communication was meticulously documented. The same discipline I'd applied to military. Intelligence now served a mission of systemic exposure and accountability. By the end of the 3rd week, the landscape had dramatically transformed. Corporate compliance, federal investigators, our legal team, each entity was pulling at different threads of the same complex tapestry of deceit. The government's cybersecurity contract, once their ultimate prize, was now the primary focus of a comprehensive federal investigation. Karen and Marcus had built their strategy on a fundamental miscalculation. They believed their personal and professional manipulation would go undetected. They didn't understand that I'd spent decades identifying and neutralizing complex systemic threats. The deeper unraveling was just beginning, and I was prepared to see it through to its conclusion. Systemic confrontation became my primary strategy. The federal investigation moved from a whisper to a full-scale operation, with multiple agencies converging on quantum innovations. My military training had taught me that true victory comes not from emotional revenge, but from systematic exposure of systemic vulnerabilities. The Department of Justice assembled a comprehensive task force. federal procurement investigators, cybersecurity experts, and financial crime analysts worked in concert. Each agency brought a different perspective, but they all converged on a single point of focus: the intricate web of corporate manipulation that Karen and Marcus had constructed. I was called to provide testimony, not as a scorned husband, but as a cybersecurity expert with unique insights into the complex systems of corporate fraud. The federal hearing room felt familiar, similar to military tribunals I'd participated in during my intelligence career. Clean, precise, focused on uncovering truth through meticulous documentation. Rodriguez, my forensic accounting veteran, had been instrumental in preparing the documentation. Months of financial transfers, communication logs, project budgets, each piece of evidence was a precisely crafted weapon. The phantom consulting agreements, the manipulated project budgets, the strategic positioning of Marcus within quantum innovations, everything was laid bare. Elena Rodriguez from corporate compliance became a key witness. Her internal investigation had been the first crack in Karen and Marcus's carefully constructed facade. The systematic nature of the fraud was unprecedented, she testified. Multiple layers of financial manipulation designed to exploit corporate and government systems. The government cybersecurity contract, their ultimate prize, became the centerpiece of the investigation. The $47 million project was now revealed as nothing more than an elaborate scheme to siphon corporate and federal funds through a complex network of shell companies and phantom consultants. Michael Reyes managed the legal strategy with military precision. Each motion, each piece of documentation was designed to systematically dismantle the elaborate scheme Karen and Marcus had constructed. The divorce proceedings had become secondary to the larger federal investigation. Thompson, another veteran from my training network, provided crucial technical insights. His expertise in tech compliance helped investigators understand the sophisticated methods used to manipulate corporate communication systems. The digital forensics revealed a stunning breadth of manipulation that went far beyond a simple corporate affair. Federal investigators uncovered a network of corruption that extended beyond quantum innovations. Marcus wasn't just a strategic plant within a single company. He was part of a larger system of corporate infiltration. Technology firms, government contractors, consulting agencies, all were now under intense scrutiny. The hearing rooms became a battlefield of documentation. Every email, every financial transfer, every strategic communication was dissected. Karen and Marcus had believed they could exploit complex systems with impunity. They were about to learn the fundamental lesson of systemic vulnerability. My personal betrayal had become a catalyst for a much larger investigation. The prenup that was supposed to be their perfect extraction strategy was now evidence in a federal corporate fraud case. Each clause, each financial transfer became a piece of evidence exposing their elaborate scheme. The veteran community rallied in ways I never expected. Rodriguez continued his forensic accounting. Thompson provided compliance insights. Others shared specialized knowledge about corporate communication systems, digital forensics, legal strategies. What began as a personal challenge had become a collective mission of systemic accountability. Karen's legal team tried desperately to counter the mounting evidence. Multiple motions were filed, documentation challenged, attempts made to create confusion. But each motion only exposed more inconsistencies. The very systems they thought would protect them were now turning against them. Federal prosecutors outlined the full scope of the investigation: corporate espionage, systematic fraud, manipulation of government contract processes. The charges went far beyond a simple corporate affair. Marcus and Karen had systematically exploited multiple corporate and government systems. I thought about the veterans I'd trained, each understanding the importance of resilience, of systematic approach, of turning challenges into opportunities for growth. This was my battlefield now, not with traditional weapons, but with documentation, with strategic thinking, with an unwavering commitment to systemic integrity. The timeline of their manipulation became a critical piece of evidence. Marcus's strategic positioning within quantum, innovations, the carefully constructed network of shell companies, the phantom consulting agreements designed to funnel millions into untraceable accounts. Each element was meticulously documented. Digital forensics became our primary weapon. Every communication, every financial transfer was traced, analyzed, exposed. The same discipline I'd applied to military intelligence now served a mission of systemic exposure and accountability. Thompson provided a critical technical analysis of their communication systems. This wasn't just a corporate affair, he testified. This was a sophisticated system of corporate infiltration designed to exploit multiple vulnerabilities across different organizational structures. By the end of the federal hearings, the landscape had dramatically transformed. What began as a personal betrayal had become a comprehensive federal investigation into corporate manipulation strategies. Karen and Marcus had believed they could exploit corporate and personal systems with impunity. The systemic confrontation revealed a fundamental truth. Complex systems have inherent vulnerabilities, but they also have inherent protections for those willing to understand and navigate them with precision, integrity, and unwavering commitment. As the federal investigation continued to expand, I realized that the true victory wasn't about personal revenge. It was about exposing systemic vulnerabilities, protecting corporate and government integrity, and demonstrating that no manipulation can withstand truly systematic scrutiny. The turning point arrived on a crisp October morning when the federal indictments were unsealed. What began as a personal betrayal had transformed into a landmark corporate fraud investigation that would reshape how technology companies approached internal compliance and government contracting. Karen and Marcus were arrested separately. Her at Quantum Innovations headquarters, him during a supposed business meeting in downtown Richmond. The charges read like a comprehensive indictment of corporate malfeasance, multiple counts of wire fraud, corporate espionage, systematic financial manipulation, and violation of federal procurement regulations. My role had evolved from a betrayed husband to a key witness in a federal investigation that would become a case study in corporate corruption. The government cybersecurity contract, their ultimate prize, was now Exhibit A in a prosecution that would send shockwaves through the technology industry. Federal prosecutors revealed the full scope of the conspiracy. Marcus had been strategically planted within Quantum Innovations 3 years ago, meticulously positioning himself to exploit corporate systems. The $47 million government contract was merely the tip of an iceberg of financial manipulation that extended across multiple corporations and government agencies. Rodriguez, my forensic accounting veteran, had been instrumental in tracing the complex financial trails, phantom consulting agreements, shell companies, carefully routed financial transfers. Each element was a piece of an elaborate scheme that had been years in the making. The veteran community had become an unexpected network of support and expertise. The preliminary hearing became a masterclass in systemic exposure. Elena Rodriguez from Corporate Compliance testified about the internal irregularities she'd first identified. Thompson provided technical insights into the sophisticated methods of corporate infiltration. Each witness peeled back another layer of the complex manipulation strategy. My personal documents, the prenup, financial records, communication logs, became critical pieces of evidence. The very system Karen and Marcus thought would protect them was now their most comprehensive prosecution tool. Every clause, every financial transfer, every strategic communication was meticulously dissected. Michael Reyes managed the legal strategy with the precision of a military operation. The divorce proceedings had become secondary to the federal investigation. Our initial strategy of systematic documentation had transformed into a comprehensive exposure of corporate corruption. The veteran network continued to provide unexpected support. Connections from my cybersecurity training programs offered insights, shared expertise, provided a support system that extended far beyond my personal circumstances. What began as a personal betrayal had become a collective mission of systemic accountability. Federal investigators uncovered a network of corruption that extended far beyond quantum innovations. Marcus wasn't just a strategic plant within a single company. He was part of a larger system of corporate infiltration targeting government contracts across multiple technology sectors. Karen's legal team attempted desperate counter-arguments. Multiple motions were filed, documentation challenged, attempts made to create confusion. But each motion only exposed more inconsistencies. The very systems they thought would protect them were now turning against them with ruthless efficiency. The Department of Justice outlined the full scope of the investigation: corporate espionage, systematic fraud, manipulation of government contract processes. The charges went far beyond a simple corporate affair. Marcus and Karen had systematically exploited multiple corporate and government systems over several years. Thompson's technical analysis revealed the sophisticated methods of their manipulation. This wasn't just financial fraud, he testified. This was a carefully constructed system designed to exploit multiple vulnerabilities across different organizational structures. I thought about the veterans I'd trained, each understanding the importance of resilience, of systematic approach, of turning challenges into opportunities for growth. This investigation had become more than a personal battle. It was a mission of systemic integrity, of exposing vulnerabilities that could harm other corporations and government agencies. The timeline of their manipulation became a critical piece of evidence. Marcus's strategic positioning within quantum innovations, the carefully constructed network of shell companies, the phantom consulting agreements designed to funnel millions into untraceable accounts. Each element was meticulously documented and exposed. Digital forensics became the primary weapon of prosecution. Every communication, every financial transfer was traced, analyzed, exposed. The same discipline I'd applied to military intelligence now served a mission of systemic exposure and accountability. The federal hearings revealed a stunning breadth of manipulation. Phantom consulting agreements, strategic positioning of corporate assets, carefully routed financial transfers designed to obscure illegal activities. Each layer peeled back revealed more complexity, more deliberate systemic exploitation. By the time the initial hearings concluded, the landscape had dramatically transformed. What began as a personal betrayal had become a comprehensive federal investigation into corporate manipulation strategies. Karen and Marcus had believed they could exploit corporate and personal systems with impunity. The turning point wasn't just about personal vindication. It was about exposing systemic vulnerabilities, protecting corporate and government integrity, demonstrating that no manipulation can withstand truly systematic scrutiny. The veteran community had become an unexpected network of support, expertise, and systemic accountability. As the federal investigation continued to expand, I realized that true victory wasn't about revenge. It was about understanding complex systems, identifying their vulnerabilities, and protecting the fundamental integrity of institutional structures. The systems I'd spent my entire career building and understanding had become the very instruments of comprehensive exposure. Justice was no longer an emotional concept. It was a systematic, precise mechanism of accountability. Resolution preparation began with methodical precision. The federal investigation had transformed from a personal battle to a comprehensive examination of corporate systemic vulnerabilities. Every document, every communication, every financial transfer became a carefully preserved piece of evidence. Michael Reyes and I spent weeks preparing for the comprehensive testimony. My role had evolved from a betrayed husband to a key witness in a landmark federal investigation. The veteran community continued to provide unexpected support, Rodriguez with his forensic accounting, Thompson with technical insights, each bringing a unique perspective to our systematic approach. The Department of Justice built a case that would become a watershed moment in corporate fraud prosecution. Quantum Innovations' entire corporate structure was laid bare. A complex network of manipulated systems, strategically positioned executives, and carefully constructed financial deceptions. What Karen and Marcus had believed was an unbreakable strategy was now a comprehensive indictment. My personal documentation became a critical component of the investigation. The prenup that was supposed to be their perfect extraction strategy now served as a roadmap of their manipulative intentions. Every clause, every financial provision, became evidence of a broader scheme of corporate and personal manipulation. Elena Rodriguez from Corporate Compliance continued to provide crucial insider information. Her initial observations had been the first crack in the elaborate facade Karen and Marcus had constructed. The systematic nature of the fraud went beyond anything we'd ever seen, she testified during preparation meetings. The government's cybersecurity contract, their ultimate prize, became the centerpiece of the prosecution's strategy. The $47 million project was revealed as nothing more than an elaborate scheme to siphon corporate and federal funds through a complex network of shell companies and phantom consultants. Digital forensics became our most powerful weapon. Rodriguez had traced financial transfers with military precision, phantom consulting agreements, strategically routed funds, carefully constructed communication networks designed to obscure illegal activities. Each piece of evidence was meticulously documented, cross-referenced, verified. Thompson provided critical technical analysis that would form the backbone of our technical testimony. The sophisticated methods of corporate infiltration, the strategic positioning of digital assets, the complex communication systems designed to exploit corporate vulnerabilities. Each element was carefully prepared for comprehensive presentation. Federal prosecutors worked tirelessly to build a case that would not just prosecute Karen and Marcus, but would serve as a deterrent for future corporate manipulation. The investigation had expanded far beyond a personal betrayal, revealing a complex network of corporate corruption that extended across multiple technology sectors. My military training proved invaluable during the preparation. Systematic documentation, precise communication, the ability to remain emotionally detached while presenting complex factual information. Each deposition, each preparation session was approached with the same discipline I'd applied to military intelligence operations. The veteran community became an unexpected network of support and expertise. Connections from my cybersecurity training programs offered insights, shared experiences, provided a support system that extended far beyond my personal circumstances. What began as a personal challenge had become a collective mission of systemic accountability. Preliminary hearings revealed the full scope of the conspiracy. Marcus's strategic positioning within Quantum Innovations, the carefully constructed network of shell companies, the phantom consulting agreements designed to funnel millions into untraceable accounts. Each element was meticulously prepared for comprehensive presentation. Michael Reyes managed the legal strategy with surgical precision. The divorce proceedings had become secondary to the federal investigation. Our initial strategy of systematic documentation had transformed into a comprehensive exposure of corporate corruption that would reshape how technology companies approached internal compliance. The timeline of manipulation became a critical piece of our preparatory evidence. Every communication, every financial transfer, every strategic positioning was traced, analyzed, verified. The same discipline I'd applied to military intelligence now served a mission of systemic exposure and accountability. Federal investigators continued to uncover additional layers of the conspiracy. The network of corruption extended beyond quantum innovations, implicating multiple corporations and government contractors. Each new piece of evidence was carefully integrated into our comprehensive preparation. I thought about the veterans I'd trained, each understanding the importance of resilience, of systematic approach, of turning challenges into opportunities for growth. This preparation was more than just legal strategy. It was a mission of systemic integrity, of exposing vulnerabilities that could harm other corporations and government agencies. The Department of Justice prepared multiple layers of prosecution: corporate espionage, systematic fraud, manipulation of government contract processes. The charges went far beyond a simple corporate affair. Marcus and Karen had systematically exploited multiple corporate and government systems over several years. Preparation became a form of meditation. Each document reviewed, each communication analyzed, each financial transfer traced. The complex systems I'd spent my entire career understanding were now being used to expose a sophisticated network of corporate manipulation. Karen's legal team attempted last-minute strategies to derail the investigation. Multiple motions were filed, documentation challenged, attempts made to create confusion, but each attempt only exposed more inconsistencies. The very systems they thought would protect them were now turning against them with ruthless efficiency. By the time our preparation concluded, we had created a comprehensive narrative of corporate manipulation. What began as a personal betrayal had transformed into a landmark investigation that would reshape corporate compliance and government contract processes. The resolution was no longer about personal vindication. It was about understanding complex systems, identifying their vulnerabilities, and protecting the fundamental integrity of institutional structures. Every piece of evidence, every systematic approach was designed to expose the truth. As we prepared for the final stages of the investigation, I realized that true justice was not about revenge. It was about systematic exposure, about creating mechanisms that could prevent future manipulations, about protecting the integrity of corporate and government systems. The systems I'd spent my entire career building and understanding had become the very instruments of comprehensive accountability. Preparation was complete. Justice was about to be served. The climactic resolution unfolded in a federal courtroom that felt more like a battlefield of evidence and systematic exposure. What had begun as a personal betrayal had transformed into a landmark prosecution that would reshape corporate accountability across multiple industries. Karen sat diminished, her once powerful presence crushed by the weight of comprehensive documentation. Marcus appeared beside her, both of them wearing standard court attire that stripped away the veneer of corporate success they'd so carefully constructed. The federal prosecutor methodically dismantled their elaborate scheme, piece by piece. Document by document, 12 days of testimony revealed the full extent of their corporate manipulation. The government cybersecurity contract, their ultimate prize, was exposed as an intricate fraud scheme involving multiple corporations, government contractors, and a complex network of financial deception. Each piece of evidence was a precision instrument carefully crafted to reveal the systematic nature of their corruption. Rodriguez, my forensic accounting veteran, provided testimony that became the backbone of the prosecution's case. He traced financial transfers with mathematical precision, revealing a web of phantom consulting agreements, strategically routed funds, and carefully constructed shell companies. The veteran's attention to detail became a weapon of systemic exposure. Thompson's technical analysis further dismantled their defense. He demonstrated how Marcus had systematically infiltrated corporate communication systems, exploiting digital vulnerabilities with a sophistication that initially made their scheme appear impenetrable. Each technical explanation peeled back another layer of their elaborate manipulation. Elena Rodriguez, from corporate compliance, provided crucial insider testimony. Her initial observations had been the first crack in the facade. The systematic nature of the fraud went beyond anything we'd ever seen, she testified, her voice steady and professional. Corporate compliance had become a critical line of defense against systemic corruption. My own testimony became a pivotal moment in the trial. I detailed how the Prenup, initially designed as their perfect extraction strategy, had become the first piece of evidence exposing their broader scheme. Every clause, every financial provision became a testament to their calculated manipulation. The federal prosecutors presented a narrative of calculated betrayal that extended far beyond a personal affair. Marcus's strategic positioning within Quantum Innovations, the carefully constructed network of shell companies, the phantom consulting agreements designed to funnel millions into untraceable accounts. Each element was meticulously documented and exposed. 12 families had been directly impacted by their corporate manipulation. The government cybersecurity contract was revealed as nothing more than an elaborate scheme to siphon corporate and federal funds. The $47 million project became a symbol of corporate corruption, a complex mechanism of financial deception. Karen's legal team attempted desperate final arguments. Multiple motions were filed, documentation challenged, attempts made to create confusion, but each attempt only exposed more inconsistencies. The very systems they thought would protect them were now turning against them with ruthless efficiency. The veteran community watched with a sense of collective purpose. Rodriguez, Thompson, and others who had supported the investigation understood that this was more than a personal victory. It was a mission of systemic accountability, of exposing vulnerabilities that could harm other corporations and government agencies. Digital forensics became the most powerful evidence. Every communication, every financial transfer was traced, analyzed, exposed. The same discipline I'd applied to military intelligence now served a mission of systemic exposure and accountability. The Department of Justice outlined the full scope of the investigation: corporate espionage, systematic fraud, manipulation of government contract processes. The charges went far beyond a simple corporate affair. Marcus and Karen had systematically exploited multiple corporate and government systems over several years. I thought about the veterans I'd trained, each understanding the importance of resilience, of systematic approach, of turning challenges into opportunities for growth. This trial was more than a personal battle. It was a mission of systemic integrity, of exposing vulnerabilities that could protect other corporations and government agencies. The timeline of manipulation became a critical piece of evidence. Marcus's strategic positioning within Quantum Innovations, the carefully constructed network of shell companies, the phantom consulting agreements designed to funnel millions into untraceable accounts. Each element was meticulously exposed. Federal investigators had uncovered a network of corruption that extended far beyond quantum innovations. Marcus wasn't just a strategic plant within a single company. He was part of a larger system of corporate infiltration targeting government contracts across multiple technology sectors. As the trial entered its final stages, the comprehensive nature of their manipulation became crystal clear. What had begun as a personal betrayal had transformed into a landmark federal investigation into corporate manipulation strategies. Karen and Marcus had believed they could exploit corporate and personal systems with impunity. The verdict was read with surgical precision. Guilty on all counts, multiple charges of wire fraud, corporate espionage, systematic financial manipulation. The sentencing would become a landmark moment in corporate accountability. As Karen and Marcus were led away, I realized that true victory wasn't about personal revenge. It was about understanding complex systems, identifying their vulnerabilities, and protecting the fundamental integrity of institutional structures. The systems I'd spent my entire career building and understanding had become the very instruments of comprehensive exposure. Justice was no longer an emotional concept. It was a systematic, precise mechanism of accountability. The climactic resolution was complete. The truth had been systematically, meticulously revealed. The new equilibrium emerged slowly, methodically, like a system recalibrating after a significant disruption. My life had transformed from a personal betrayal to a landmark moment of systemic accountability, and the aftermath was anything but ordinary. The federal investigation had not just concluded a corporate fraud case, it had reshaped how companies would approach internal compliance and government contracting. 12 families received comprehensive restitution. Corporate boards across multiple industries began implementing more rigorous verification protocols. I accepted an invitation to join the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity Advisory Board. My experience wasn't just about personal survival, it had become a blueprint for systemic protection. The veteran community had been instrumental in my journey, and now I would serve as a bridge between military precision and corporate accountability. Old Dominion University requested that I develop a comprehensive course on corporate fraud detection. My cybersecurity training programs expanded, now focusing on teaching veterans how to identify and prevent sophisticated systemic manipulation. Each lecture became more than an academic exercise. It was a mission of systematic education. Rodriguez continued his forensic accounting work, now consulting with federal agencies on complex financial investigations. Thompson developed advanced digital forensics training programs for government contractors. The network of veterans who had supported me had transformed into a collective force of systemic accountability. My personal life underwent a fundamental reconstruction. The house was sold, the proceeds divided between creating a scholarship for veterans in cybersecurity and establishing a foundation to support families impacted by corporate fraud. Every decision was made with the same systematic approach that had exposed the original manipulation. The veteran community became my primary support system. Monthly meetings, support groups, shared experiences of reconstruction and resilience. We were more than survivors. We were systematic architects of personal and professional transformation. Michael Reyes and I maintained a professional relationship, occasionally consulting on complex legal cases involving corporate misconduct. The federal investigation had been more than a legal victory. It was a comprehensive exposure of systemic vulnerabilities. Elena Rodriguez from Corporate Compliance became a key ally in developing new verification protocols for technology companies. Our collaborative efforts began reshaping how corporations approached internal compliance and external contracts. The financial settlement from the case was secondary to the systemic impact. 12 families received comprehensive restitution. Corporate boards across multiple industries began implementing more rigorous verification protocols. The ripple effect of our investigation extended far beyond personal vindication. I began writing a comprehensive book about systemic protection, corporate accountability, and the importance of understanding complex institutional systems. Each chapter was a lesson in resilience, in systematic thinking, in the power of methodical exposure. The veterans I'd trained continued to reach out, sharing their own stories of reconstruction, of turning personal challenges into systemic opportunities. Our network became a powerful force of collective accountability, of shared resilience. My teaching at Old Dominion University became more than an academic pursuit. Each lecture was a comprehensive lesson in systemic thinking, in understanding how complex institutions can be simultaneously vulnerable and powerful. Veterans from various branches filled my classrooms, eager to learn how to protect and transform institutional systems. The divorce was finalized with minimal contention. The prenup that was once a weapon of personal manipulation had become a footnote in a much larger narrative of systemic accountability. Karen and Marcus's federal sentences, significant prison time, and comprehensive financial penalties became a deterrent for future corporate manipulation. Quantum Innovations underwent a complete structural reconstruction. New leadership, comprehensive compliance protocols, systematic verification processes. The company became a case study in corporate transformation, in the power of systematic exposure. The veteran community continued to be my primary support system. Monthly meetings, shared experiences of reconstruction and resilience. We were more than survivors. We were systematic architects of personal and professional transformation. My cybersecurity consulting work expanded, now focusing on helping corporations develop comprehensive protection strategies. Each project was an opportunity to apply the lessons learned from our federal investigation, to help institutions become more resilient, more systematic in their approach to potential vulnerabilities. The foundation I established began providing scholarships for veterans transitioning into cybersecurity and corporate compliance roles. Each scholarship was more than financial support. It was an investment in systemic protection, in creating a new generation of institutional guardians. Rodriguez and Thompson continued to be key allies, our network of veteran professionals expanding, creating a comprehensive approach to corporate accountability. We were no longer just individual survivors. We were a collective force of systemic transformation. I reflected on the journey from a personal betrayal to a landmark moment of systemic accountability. The systems I'd spent my entire career understanding had become instruments of comprehensive exposure and protection. Justice was no longer an emotional concept. It was a systematic, precise mechanism of accountability. The new equilibrium wasn't about personal victory. It was about understanding complex systems, identifying their vulnerabilities, and creating mechanisms of protection. Every challenge had become an opportunity for systematic transformation. My life had become a testament to the power of systematic thinking, of resilience, of turning personal challenges into opportunities for broader institutional protection. The systems endure. The truth prevails. And sometimes justice arrives through the most unexpected mechanisms. 3 years after the federal investigation, I found myself standing at the podium of a national cybersecurity conference, addressing an audience of corporate leaders, federal investigators, and veteran professionals. The journey from a personal betrayal to a systemic transformation had been more profound than I could have ever imagined. The story had become more than a personal narrative. It was a comprehensive case study in systemic vulnerability, corporate accountability, and the power of systematic thinking. 12 families had received restitution. Multiple corporations had transformed their compliance protocols. The ripple effect of our investigation continued to reshape corporate accountability across multiple industries. My foundation had become a critical resource for veterans transitioning into cybersecurity and corporate compliance roles. Each scholarship was an investment in systemic protection, in creating a new generation of institutional guardians who understood the complex nature of corporate vulnerabilities. Rodriguez continued his forensic accounting work, now a leading consultant for federal agencies investigating complex financial crimes. Thompson had developed advanced digital forensics training programs that were being implemented across government and corporate sectors. Our veteran network had transformed from a support group into a comprehensive force of systemic accountability. The book I'd written, Systems of Betrayal Protecting Institutional Integrity, had become required reading in corporate compliance courses and military leadership programs. Each chapter was a lesson in resilience, in systematic thinking, in the power of methodical exposure. Old Dominion University had expanded the cybersecurity and corporate compliance program I'd helped develop. Veterans from across the country came to learn how to identify and prevent sophisticated systemic manipulation. The classroom had become more than an academic space. It was a training ground for institutional protection. My advisory role with the Department of Homeland Security had allowed me to implement comprehensive new verification protocols for government contractors. The lessons learned from the Quantum Innovations investigation had become a blueprint for systemic protection across multiple government agencies. Elena Rodriguez had become a key figure in corporate compliance reform. The work we'd started during the federal investigation had transformed how technology companies approached internal oversight and external contract management. Our collaborative efforts had created a new standard of institutional accountability. The veterans I'd trained continued to reach out, sharing their own stories of reconstruction, of turning personal challenges into systemic opportunities. What had begun as a personal support network had become a powerful collective force of professional transformation. Michael Reyes and I continued to consult on complex legal cases involving corporate misconduct. Each case was an opportunity to apply the systematic approach that had exposed the original manipulation. The legal landscape was changing, becoming more sophisticated in its approach to institutional protection. Quantum Innovations had undergone a complete structural reconstruction. New leadership, comprehensive compliance protocols, systematic verification processes. The company had become a case study in corporate transformation, in the power of systematic exposure. My personal life had found a new equilibrium. The house was gone, but the foundation I'd established continued to grow. Scholarships, support programs, educational initiatives, each effort was a testament to the power of systematic thinking and resilience. The federal investigation had become more than a legal victory. It was a comprehensive exposure of systemic vulnerabilities that extended far beyond a single corporate affair. 12 families had received restitution. Corporate boards across multiple industries had implemented more rigorous verification protocols. As I looked out over the conference audience, I saw veterans, corporate leaders, federal investigators, all united by a common understanding. Systemic protection wasn't about creating impenetrable barriers. It was about understanding vulnerabilities, creating adaptive mechanisms, maintaining constant vigilance. My journey had taught me that true accountability comes from systematic, thinking from the ability to see beyond individual incidents to the broader institutional structures that enable or prevent manipulation. Each challenge was an opportunity for transformation. The veterans in the audience understood this most profoundly. We were more than survivors. We were systematic architects of institutional protection. Our experiences had become a collective force of resilience, of transformation. Rodriguez, Thompson, and others from our network were present, each now a leader in their respective fields. We had transformed a personal network of support into a comprehensive approach to corporate and institutional accountability. The book, the foundation, the educational programs, each was a mechanism of systemic protection. We were creating a new generation of professionals who understood that true accountability requires constant vigilance, systematic thinking, and the courage to expose vulnerabilities. As I concluded my speech, the audience rose in a standing ovation. But this wasn't about personal recognition. It was a collective acknowledgement of the power of systematic thinking, of the importance of institutional protection. The story that had begun with a personal betrayal had transformed into a comprehensive mission of systemic accountability. Justice was no longer an emotional concept. It was a systematic, precise mechanism of protection and transformation. My life had become a testament to the power of resilience, of turning personal challenges into opportunities for broader institutional protection. The systems endure, the truth prevails. And sometimes transformation arrives through the most unexpected mechanisms. As I walked off the stage, I knew our work was far from over. The mission of systemic protection, of institutional accountability, was an ongoing journey. And we would continue to move forward, systematically, precisely, with unwavering commitment. 5 years after the landmark Quantum Innovations investigation, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had transformed not just my life, but the entire landscape of corporate accountability. The systems we'd exposed, the vulnerabilities we'd identified, the transformations we'd initiated, they were more than a personal story. They were a blueprint for institutional resilience. My office at the Veterans Cybersecurity Institute, a foundation we'd built from the ground up, overlooked the Richmond skyline. Each window was a reminder of the complex systems that govern our professional and personal lives. Outside, a new generation of veterans was learning the art of systemic protection, of turning personal challenges into opportunities for broader institutional accountability. The foundation had become more than an educational institution. It was a movement, a collective force of veterans dedicated to protecting institutional integrity. Scholarships, training programs, consulting services, each initiative was designed to create a comprehensive approach to systemic vulnerability. Rodriguez and Thompson sat across from me, reviewing our latest research on corporate compliance. Technologies, what had begun as a personal support network, had transformed into a national resource for institutional protection. Our veteran community had become a powerful force of systematic thinking, of resilience, of transformation. Elena Rodriguez, now a leading voice in corporate compliance reform, joined our weekly strategy meeting. The ripple effects of our investigation continued to reshape how corporations approached internal oversight. Quantum Innovations had become a case study in systemic transformation, a testament to the power of comprehensive exposure. I thought about the 12 families who had received restitution, about the corporate leaders who had transformed their compliance protocols, about the veterans who had found new purpose in protecting institutional integrity. Our journey was never about personal vindication. It was about creating a systematic approach to accountability. The book continued to sell, now translated into multiple languages. Systems of betrayal, protecting institutional integrity, had become required reading in military leadership programs, corporate compliance courses, cybersecurity training initiatives. Each chapter was a lesson in resilience, in the power of systematic thinking. Our advisory work with the Department of Homeland Security had expanded. New verification protocols, comprehensive protection strategies, advanced detection mechanisms. We were constantly evolving, constantly identifying new vulnerabilities in institutional systems. The veterans I'd trained continued to reach out, sharing their own stories of reconstruction, of turning personal challenges into systemic opportunities. Our network had become a comprehensive force of professional transformation, a collective approach to institutional protection. As I prepared for today's lecture at Old Dominion University, I reflected on the journey, from a personal betrayal to a landmark moment of systemic accountability. The systems I'd spent my entire career understanding had become instruments of comprehensive exposure and protection. To those watching this story, whether you're a veteran, a professional, someone facing your own systemic challenges, understand this: your greatest strength lies not in emotional response, but in systematic thinking. Every challenge is an opportunity for transformation. Our story proves that true accountability comes from understanding complex systems, from identifying vulnerabilities, from maintaining unwavering commitment to institutional integrity. Karen and Marcus thought they could manipulate the system. Instead, they became a case study in systemic exposure. But this story isn't just about them. It's about you, about your ability to turn personal challenges into opportunities for broader transformation, about the power of resilience, of systematic thinking, of understanding that every institutional vulnerability is also an opportunity for protection. If you found value in this journey, if you're inspired by the power of systematic thinking, I invite you to join our mission, subscribe to our channel, follow our foundation's work, share this story with someone who needs to understand that personal challenges can become opportunities for broader institutional transformation. To the veterans watching, you are more than survivors. You are systematic architects of institutional protection. To the professionals facing challenges, understand that every system has vulnerabilities, but also has the potential for comprehensive transformation. Hit that subscribe button, share this story, become part of a movement dedicated to systemic accountability, to institutional protection, to turning personal challenges into opportunities for broader transformation. This is more than a story. It's a blueprint for resilience, a testament to the power of systematic thinking, an invitation to transform your greatest challenges into your most significant opportunities. Systems endure, truth prevails, and sometimes justice arrives through the most unexpected mechanisms. Subscribe now. Your journey of systemic transformation begins today.